Hi, everyone. It's Larry here. Making this recording as a follow up from our training we had a couple weeks ago. So, I've got a couple of intentions. One of them is to just summarize the key ideas we talked about in our time together, to remind you to think about the one or two things that you walked away with that you really want to take some time to practice and put into practice and work with. And thirdly, we did a lot. This was kind of a overview introduction. We could have spent more time together, but I didn't want to overwhelm people. So my third point is have you thinking about when we do a continuation, our next training, what is it from this training that you'd like to spend some more time with to go deeper or to build some more practice time around? So if you're coaching, communicating, you've got mentoring, you've got people that you want to draw some information out of before they leave the organization, give us some ideas. I'll ask you about that again at the end of the training. So here we go. First thing we talked about was the number of people leaving YDOT and how do we capture that knowledge? Because, man, there's a lot of wisdom and knowledge and capability that's getting ready to walk out the door. So, how do you capture that before it leaves? So, I'm just going to leave that question out there because that's going to be an ongoing question and challenge for us to work with. Next piece, we looked at the developing others leadership model. We've worked with before the directing, which is the most management oriented phase of leadership. Coaching is a little bit more balanced between managing and facilitating, directing and facilitating. And then when you get into mentoring and delegating and peak performing, your role is primarily a facilitator. And one of my pet peeves and bias in that whole process is that as you move from managing to coaching, mentoring, you have to improve. It requires more advanced or more practice communication skills. So that's where the questions come in. It's also before the training, I ask you to think about what percentage of your time are you involved with telling, what percentage of your time are you involved in asking, because telling tends to be more of a management tool. Several people commented that they liked having the different leadership roles broken down. So just to remind you that those are there, that's in your material. Directing is for people that whenever we're going through change or we have new people and they need a lot of guidance, but the more that you direct, the less people will grow. So there comes that transition time where you've got to stop doing that, move into more of the coaching, mentoring, delegating role. Again, reminder, this is something useful and you can use it either generally for your leadership style or you can use it specifically for each individual on your team or your crew that answers to you. A percentage of time you are spending in each role, percentage of time that would actually be ideal. So keep that in mind and be prepared to play with and work with that some. We spend a lot of time, I could bring this into a lot of trainings on where we focus because every organization, whether we're talking about YDOT or a coffee shop or somebody's in the horseshoe business, you've got work that you have to do, but then the quality of that work really comes down to the interactions and the relationships you have. So the work itself in the left hand column is the tactical, measurable things, and those are things you manage. But the right hand column, those are the interactions, the relationship, the people skills, and so forth. So, simple example, I know handymen that are extremely capable and good at what they do, but they're really poor at getting back to people. They don't return phone calls. They don't call people to let them know when they're late. They've got a very unprofessional looking invoice. People don't trust them. That's the interaction part. We looked at the coaching model. We worked with this on several different occasions. So, again, a simple framework to get an agreement, come up with some solutions, do some follow up, keep people encouraged, and pat them on the back. And as a part of that process, we had the diagnostic checklist. And so this is one of those things, the same sort of thing with feedback. Prepare, prepare, prepare. Get your thoughts organized ahead of time. And the diagnostic checklist we had is a way to kind of to walk your way through, think your way through situation with your employee before you meet with them. And then there are extra copies of that available in case that you'd like to be able to give that to your employees so that you can have a dialogue and a discussion. It's not one way. Following that, we did the coaching assessment, which is multiple categories of where you are currently in your coaching abilities. And, a couple things I ask about that were, what general insights does it give you? But also, what are the clear strengths that you have, and what are three areas of improvement that would be beneficial for you? And I just want to suggest that if you want to work with that and grow yourself, consider using the coaching model and finding a partner that you can practice your coaching skills to help each other grow in your coaching skills. Communication, this is always interesting. I think I'm in business mostly because communication continues to be such a challenge in organizations. So whether it's within YDOT, whether it's between crews, whether it's between the foreman and crews, communication continues to be a challenge. And what's always mind-boggling to me is to be reminded that only 7% of communication is words. The rest of it is body language and tonality. There's a famous quote from St. Francis of Assisi who once said, "Preach by all means available, and if necessary, even use words." So, as a part of that process, remember we did that three-part message, that coaching exercise. Take a message, add a voice tone, add a body language, and you change the voice tone, the body language, and the message completely changes. So, we played with that a little bit. And since then, this popped up in an interview I saw the other day, and I thought it was really very cool. The most powerful and most used medium for communication. Think about that. The most powerful and most used medium for communication. And that would be your face. Here's an example. Without uttering a word, you and I are always communicating something through the look and the tension, the lack of tension, the expressiveness of our face. So keep that in mind. Remember the "I never said you stole the money." Uh, Simply bringing the awareness to a simple phrase, "Please try that again. Please try that again." The word you choose to accent and highlight completely changes the meaning of the message. So, general question, within your group, within your crew, within your part of the organization, where are the areas where communication really is open and flowing? You get what you need when you need it, as you need it, and where are parts that are a little bit less fluid and effective, less open? So, coaching practice, this is a reminder on the three-part message, tonality, body language, completely changes the message. Coaching miscues, we talked about that in the intent to be helpful. Sometimes we use miscues that keep people from opening up and make them defensive and less likely to be helped. So, left hand column, this is in your handouts. These are things that would be ineffective, that would slow down and shut down the process. And the right hand column is how would you do something to counter that and be more effective. So, again, that's a reminder. Two little coaching models we worked with. One is the BET model, you bet. And this one is all about catching people doing doing the right things. I remember that was a title of a chapter in 1 Minute Manager, written probably 30 years ago now, is like catch people doing things right, and that still continues to be a challenge. We don't have any issue focusing on problems and getting on people's back when they do something wrong, but we're just not nearly as adept at catching people doing things right. So the basic model: there's a behavior. That behavior has an effect, and that effect is what you're thanking people for. And it's much more effective than just a random "thank you, you did a good job." When you can get specific, it has more impact. The other one, this is for when you need to correct behavior, when something's not showing up as acceptable as you'd like for it to be. So it's very similar, but there's the behavior, there's an effect. So behavior, you're late for meetings. The effect is what? The expectations, you'll be here on time. And the result, what's going to happen? What do we need to do to change this in the future? So again, two little simple models: one to pat people on the back, the other is to help people brainstorm when they can improve. The next one, the coffee model, came out of the mentoring program, and it always kind of surprises me, but it's very consistent that when I ask people to ask, "What kind of coffee do you recommend?" I don't know that, maybe one or two times, but I don't know that I've ever actually had somebody stop and say, "Look, before I make a recommendation, what works for you?" From a coaching standpoint and mentoring standpoint, remember making that comment that we're not trying to clone ourselves and make mini me's. You want to be effective for this individual, and then for this individual, and then for this individual. And that's where the effective questions come in, is to be able to ask some questions like, I don't know, what kind of coffee do you like? What's your preference? What kind of taste? Do you take it with cream? So that just that whole notion of ask before you speak, engage, listen, be receptive. Mentoring self-assessment, invite you to go back and look through that and see what highlights stood out for you from a mentoring standpoint. And then the last couple things we covered, the power of questions. This is one of those things we could probably take 3 or 4 hours and work on and build levels and come up with practice questions. And if you brought situations, if you brought opportunities for asking questions that engage people, we could take this quite a bit deeper and have you practice and work around what questions would be useful to you. So, just to summarize, first thing we did was look at why questions that were ineffective because they make people feel defensive. And then the second part is the what or the how questions that engage people and help them discover and find their own solutions, and kind of by their nature let people know that you trust them and they're competent, and you trust the knowledge that they have and their ability to fix some of their own problems. So as you think about questions, two other resources. Keith had the behavioral interview questions contact for the website from Kansas, and I've looked at that. It's really excellent. That would be useful for you. And the second one is that small handout I found on probing questions that I really like. So you have that at your disposal as well. Stay away from accusations. When we did that first tonality exercise, I never said you stole the money. I had several people tell me that was the most powerful and most negative one. So if you want to stay away from trigger words, the two that I invite you to consider: why and you. Why is enough to make a person feel defensive. So the last piece, feedback planner. And we didn't spend a lot of time on this, but I wanted to have a framework out there that would be useful for you. And a simple process: there is current behavior, specific observable behavior, not innuendo, not hearsay, not judgmental, but specific observable behavior. Like I'm raising my left hand and gesturing right now while I'm nodding my head. That's specific and observable. Second one is below that: what's the situation? When does it show up? Third one: what's the consequence or the impact? That's what you're really concerned about, is the consequence or the impact that this behavior is having on people. And then fourth, what do we do? What are the alternatives? So you have this in your handout material, and that's again a reference guide. This is another piece of the program that we could spend a lot of time working with next time. So last thing I want to leave you with, from all these ideas, what do you want to deepen? What would you like more practice with? What are situations you have going on right now, or that you've dealt with in the past, or that continues to be somewhat of an Achilles heel? What are situations you could bring back, and we could apply the coaching model? We could apply the communication skills. We could apply the questioning process. I'm asking you to think about, as we prepare for the next training down the road, what pieces of this can we come back and revisit and take to a deeper level? So that's it. I just wanted to send out a quick reminder and again say thanks. I always love coming up and working with you guys. So God bless, be safe, and I'll see you next time down the road. Bye.